I'm going to do one of your homework problems for you, and then there's one other thing that I want to show you that will help you tomorrow. So we'll do these couple of problems. So this is number 3 from the homework, and so h of t equals the square root of t times 1 minus t squared. And so you have two things that are multiplied here. Technically, you could distribute the square root of t and use that to find the derivative, but I want us to use product rule because that's what we're using here. So I'm going to let the square root of t be my f, and I'm going to let this 1 minus t squared be my g. And so when I take the derivative of this function, I will have f of x, which is my square root of t, times the derivative of g, which in this case is going to be negative 2t. The derivative of 1 is just 0. Here you'll have negative 2t to the first power when you take the derivative of that negative 2t. And then you'll have your plus sign. You'll have g of x, which is 1 minus t squared, and then the derivative of square root of t. Remember, the square root of t is the same as t to the 1/2 power. So when you take this derivative, you're going to have 1/2 t to the negative 1/2. So you just multiply out front by the 1/2, and then subtract 1 from your exponent, which is going to give you negative 1/2. So the main reason I wanted to see these, I think you guys can probably handle taking that derivative. You're just doing your f of x times your g prime of x times your g of x times the f prime of x. So you're just taking that derivative. But where this gets a little bit tricky is in simplifying the answer back to what they give you as the answer. So like for this particular problem, they give the answer as 1 minus 5t squared over 2 square root of t. So let's look at what they've done there. So let's just clean this up a little bit. We've got negative 2t square root of t plus, here I can move this, since I have a negative exponent, I can move it back down to the denominator. So I'll have 1 minus t squared over 2, and I'm going to go right here and put square root of t there. Because this, of course, when you've got 1/2 t to the negative 1/2, you're going to move the t to the 1/2 back down to the denominator, and we can change that over here to the square root of t. And so notice that the answer has 2 square root of t as the total denominator. So they've gotten common denominators here. So if I wanted to do that, what I would have to do is I would have to multiply this fraction right here, which right now has a denominator of 1, I would have to multiply that denominator by 2 square root of t, which means I also have to multiply by 2 square root of t in the numerator. And so when I do that, to do negative 2t square root of t times 2 square root of t, the 2 and the negative 4, and negative 2 can multiply together to give you negative 4. You've got that t, and then the square root of t times the square root of t is t. So this is going to give you negative 4t squared whenever you multiply these two terms right here together. And then you've got plus 1 minus t squared, and that's all over 2 square root of t because you've got those common denominators now. And so once you do this, now you can just combine your t squares and 1 minus 5t squared over 2 square root of t. And so this is how they leave the answer. Now, of course, on a free response question, you can stop here. On a free response question, you do not have to simplify. But a lot of times you'll see these problems on multiple choice questions, and they won't have this as an answer choice. It'll probably look something more like what you see here. So you'll need to be able to do that. Then I want to look at this other type of problem here. And for some reason I have this moved down now. Why don't we move this back up to And so let's say that we have not got actual functions. We've just got a graph. And so if I have h of x equals f of x times g of x, and they ask me to find h prime of x, well, I have to use a product rule for this. So for h prime, actually h prime negative, but first we must find h prime of x, which means that we're going to have an f of x. In this case, it is called an f of x, and I'm not using my colors like I've been. Let's do f of x and g of x. So whenever we take this derivative, we're not going to actually take the derivative quite the same as we were. So we can say 3 f of x, there's our f of x, times the derivative of g, which is going to be g prime of x, plus g of x times the derivative of f of x, which in this case would be 3 f prime of x here. And so this is our derivative. We can clean it up a little bit if we want and write it like this: 3f of x g prime of x plus 3g of x times f prime of x. Not much cleanup to do there, but this will pull that coefficient out front. And so this is our derivative. If we want to find h prime of negative 1, that means we're plugging in negative 1 for all of our x's here. So we've got 3f of negative 1 times g prime of negative 1 plus 3g of negative 1 times f prime of negative 1. And if we remember what those derivatives stand for, derivatives are slope of the tangent line. Well, in this particular case, we have linear functions, so it's just going to be the slope of the line. Whenever we're looking for something like f of negative 1, we're looking for the value of the function at that point. So in this case, we're going to have our 3. F of negative 1, we're going to look on the graph right here, and at x equals negative 1 right here, we have a y value of 3. So f of negative 1 equals 3. Then we want g prime of negative 1. Remember, this is not g of negative 1, but the slope of g at negative 1. And so this is a straight line, so it's going to have the same slope at all points on the line. And it looks like that slope is going to be up 2 to the right 1. So we're going to have a slope of 2 for our g prime of negative 1. Then we're going to have g of negative 1. Well, g of negative 1, if we look right here, negative 1's here. On the function for g, we see right here, negative 6 is our y value, so we have negative 6. And then f prime of negative 1 is the slope of this line, and we can see that it looks like here we have a slope of negative 3 for that line, so we would use negative 3. And now you just have some simple arithmetic here. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. And here we're going to have, let's see, that's 3, and negative 3 would be negative 6. Negative 9 times negative 6 is going to be a positive 54. And so whenever you add those together there, you're going to get 72 as your answer. So h prime of negative 1 would equal 72. So hopefully these will help you in doing your assignment tonight, and the second one will help you a little with your assignment tomorrow.